I was feeling a little bit awkward when Ashok Kulkarni said that he was elated and happy when I agreed to come to Pune just when Satish spoke to me on the phone. It is the most natural thing that I would do because I have been in love with the city of Pune and Marathi theatre for years. And I remember so many adorable friends who belonged to Pune and to Marathi theatre, whom I have and we have lost in the last several years. I remember, as I was sharing with Ashok this morning when he came to visit me at the hotel, a wonderful evening in Pune when Vijay Tendulkar, in his very last year, he was sick, he was a house guest at a house in Pune. Satish Alikar took me there, and that evening, Ashok tells me that that was the third year of the awards which are celebrating this evening. Vijay was there. He was brought in a wheelchair to the room where a few of us had gathered, and he handed out these certificates and the envelopes carrying the checks and said those wonderful words which I have often recounted to my friends on different occasions when he addressed the awardees and said, "We'll never ask you how you're going to spend this money because we trust you. We trust youth." I've never forgotten those words and that occasion, and I feel honored when I come to hand out the same awards so many years later and when Vijay is no longer here. But his presence is with us, and when I see Vijay's name and another dear friend, Satyadev Dubey's name together, they bring in a chain of rich memories. And with that, I think I can come into the theme that I chose for this occasion, some stray thoughts to share with you. And this has something to do with also with the concern that another friend, Sunil Shanbag, shared with you a few minutes ago. Whenever we think of theatre in these enormously large global terms, theatre slips out of our hands, slips out of our experience. Theatre is more intimate. Theatre has to do with either a single actor or a very small group of performers who put everything that they have, their imagination, their voice, their body, everything that they have into the work which they offer to an immediate audience, a living, alert, sensitive audience with which they share their most intimate, deeply felt experiences. And this is a magic, sacred space of activity, of sharing, of giving and taking, which is killed, which is demolished whenever you create a jamboree, an Olympic. I hate the word Olympic in the context of theatre. Olympics are for competition. Olympics are for performance. Olympics were conceived in the past in the European classical world for the entertainment of the rich, cruel people, heartless people, who would even relish when somebody would push somebody down on the ground, torture him, bring him to the point of death, and people would clap and enjoy. These are the associations of the Olympics. The concern to prove that the masters, those who give the awards in the competition at the end of the day, they can decide on the lives and existence of common people. On many occasions, there were slaves drawn in from different parts of the world and treated with the utmost cruelty. These are the associations of the Olympics. Why bring these down to this wonderful sacred space of theatre? And whenever we come to the place of theatre, we have memories. Theatre is also about sharing memories. When Satish Alekar rings me up, I remember his plays, the plays that I've seen or read or edited for publication, all sharing with the rest of the world, with the rest of the country, through and beyond the barriers of languages. Theatre is one space where languages matter deeply, and do not matter. There is this whole openness in theatre, this area of transference and transmutation and transformations in theatre. A text written by somebody gets translated from the words to the body, to the voice, to the tones, the subtle shades and nuances and play of the tones even, and the subtlest movement of the body. I shall never remember that moment in a play. Again, memories of death, memories of sadness hover over me. Another lost friend, Gopu Deshpande, in his Atmakatha, Dr. Lagu, at that moment, when this master mentor discovers for the first time that this young girl is madly in love with him, and he can't take it, he can't bear the load, the charge of this young woman's love, and how his face changes in a minute. It's a great moment which can't be repeated, but which can be treasured in your memory. And this is theatre. Theatre is local, intensely planted in a language. In India, I don't think of a single Indian theatre. We have Indian theatres, and small theatres, little theatres, medium theatres, theatres of different sizes, theatres of different kinds and modes of participation. And all of them theatres in their own right, for their own audiences. And with the possibility of carrying these small units, these small independent globes into larger spaces. You don't even know when a production will work with a different audience or not. And when it works, it's a thrilling experience, a realization that with all our differences, there are samenesses deep within. And you discover the sameness, and there is a magic joy in it. And this has happened so many times with me. In the theatre, actors bring in not just their own experiences or their own memories, but histories. History sometimes in their blood, in the veins, in the nerves. This young Bengali boy who was awarded today, warmly described as somebody from Delhi. But I know of another history. His grandfather, Charu Prakash Ghosh, is a legendary actor in Bengal who had acted in that great historic play, Navanna, in 1944, a play that was about the famine of 1943-44 in Bengal, and which sparked off the history of realism in Indian theatre. Charu Prakash Ghosh was a leading actor in that historic production in 1944. A production, again, a matter of theatre, of course, but a piece of theatre which grew out of an experience of horror, an experience of how humanity can be driven to the edges of existence, literally to the edges of existence. When in 1943, in a man-made famine in colonial India, in the context, in the setting of the Second World War, which was raging in the world, 3 million people died in Bengal, and more than half of them on the streets of Calcutta, literally. And there was this playwright, actor, who had never thought of doing theatre, who was a journalist, a communist journalist. He was reporting the famine, watching the famine at close quarters, and the famine was growing on his skin, on his sensibilities. And later on, the author, director of Navanna, would recall to me a memory when he would be crossing, going past a small park in Calcutta where some of these starving people from the villages had settled, living under the sky. And every day he had to cross this place to go to the nearest tram stop to take his tram to his office, the office of the newspaper for which he worked. And he told me, I passed this park by every morning, and I never had the courage to look at these people. The shame of it all overpowered me. And every day I passed them by, looking straight at the ground, on the ground, never looked at them. I didn't dare, I didn't have the guts. And one day, as I passed them, I heard a couple, maybe a couple, but a man and a woman at least, talking and laughing. Not talking about hunger, not talking about starvation, not about the future that stood before them ruthlessly, but talked about the fun they had the year before when the harvest was cut and the people were celebrating it, and the little practical jokes that one played on the other. And they laughed. And 2 days later, Bijan Bhattacharya was crossing the same point, and he saw a dead body lying there, wrapped in a rag. And in a flash, it came to him, it could be, it just could be, the same person who was laughing 2 days ago. And when he told me this story, maybe, he said, do you know, Samik, when people die, do they become smaller, shorter in size? Because they looked smaller than living human beings, those dead. And at that point of time, somebody who didn't care for theatre, who didn't watch the great masters of the Bengali stage, the legendary actors, didn't care about them. He thought they have to talk about themselves and their experiences. They alone have the right to talk about themselves. And since they're dying, somebody else has to capture their words, their voice, and act into their bodies. And that's how he first felt that he had to write a play. Because in theatre alone that could happen, that the dead could speak to the living. So the idea of theatre, the possibility of theatre came to him at that moment. And he felt so passionately about it all when he came to write it. And when he had written it, he felt that no professional, trained actors could perform that experience. He chose people who had nothing to do with theatre. And a relation, a young woman that he chose, who later became one of our major actors, Tripti Mitra. He chose Tripti for one of these roles. And when I later asked Tripti what she had thought she would like to be, she said, I wanted to be a doctor because I was growing through the years of the famine. And I felt if I was not good enough to be a doctor, maybe I could be a nurse at least. She never thought of theatre. She started acting in Navanna with Charu Prakash Ghosh, who had also never acted in his life. And Tripti recounted she was a student in a college. It was a morning college because the women's department was in the morning. And after the morning classes, she would group together with some of her friends, and they ran a small relief camp providing some food to about 30 odd women who'd come together at around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And they had cooked some sort of a gruel which they would be distributing to them. And they brought their small containers. And one afternoon, as she was going round, she was telling me, she looked at a face, and there was something in the face that stopped her. She laid the bowl around, went up, extended her arm, and this woman fell on the arm and passed away. She hadn't eaten for 5 days, and that morning she had heard of a place where food was being distributed, and she had come. It was too late for her. And Tripti would tell me, when she acted, that moment came to her, and she translated it into theatre, her performance. And all the time she felt it was not just giving that experience to the audience, but also the very practical concern. She needed funds so that she could buy the vegetables and the little bit of meat that she could cook into the gruel to serve the next day. So all these go into the making of theatre. And Charu Prakash was a part of that theatre. And when I see his grandson, or not just grandson, I saw Bikram's father, Probir, a wonderful actor. So I see a third generation, and I see how a tradition with its memories, bodily memories, vocal memories, historic memories, all of these roll into the experience of making theatre. Theatre grows through these cultures, histories, memories that have to be shared. Olympics, the grandiosity of that is a betrayal of theatre, a shameful betrayal of theatre. Let's keep theatre alive. With this kind of sharing, where, as Ashok was telling us, funds come from people out of the love of theatre, out of the commitment to theatre, and they alone can keep theatre living. No state, no authority, no power-driven, ambitious pursuit of any chimera. Long live theatre. Thank you.